name's Jeff. I'll be your server today. All right, so I wanted to show you a few of the transfers you're going to be doing tomorrow. A lot of times it's a little unfamiliar what we'll be doing in lab, and I find it's a little helpful for you to see this beforehand to speed you up. So what we'll be using here is your best friend in antibacterial action is fire. Okay? Fire is limited in terms of its personal hygiene uses. I'll show you something about that later. And basically what we'll be doing is, if you look in the aseptic technique lab, okay, on the procedure is what we'll be doing. On page 22, I'll basically be showing you the transfers for 2, 3, and 4. All right, so first thing we want to do is, this is a bacteria culture, and this is called a broth, a liquid broth. Notice you can't see through it. That's because there's so many bacteria in there that the light can't even make it through. Before the bacteria are added, it looked like that. You can see through this, right? So sterile, add the bacteria, and they grow up like that. This also has a smaller volume. Ignore that. So this is called a broth. First thing we're going to do is inoculate from a broth to a slant. This is a slant, and I don't know if you can see it there, but it is an agar-filled tube with a media in there, a rich media, and it's on a slant. So I'll inoculate from the broth into the slant. To do that, I'm going to use a loop, which I don't know if you have used. Okay, and I'm going to dip the loop into the broth, and I'm going to streak it out on the top of the slant. Now, I can't do that right now because this has been sitting on the table and there's bacteria on it. So I use my friend fire. And notice I get it glowing orange. You do not need to let it sit at glowing orange. Once it's orange, everything is dead. You've thrown everything into the volcano. And then you wait about 15 seconds or so before you touch any organisms. Otherwise, you're just going to barbecue them dead. Okay? So, once you have cooled it off then, what you want to do is open this tube, stick it in. Now I have bacteria on the tip of this loop. I'm just going to stick it inside this slant and run up on the top of it, close it, and then use the fire. All right, very important. Now I want to label this, right, because there's a lot of other people in this room, right, and your cultures are all going to be together, so you want to know what this was you added to it and your name, or maybe your initials or something. So that is broth to slant. How are we doing on time? Does it say?
You're almost at 3 minutes.
Okay, let's go. We can go fast. So now I'm going to show you a plate to a broth. So here's another broth that has not been inoculated. And this is a plate. And I don't know if you can see it here. Close enough. This is a plate on which bacteria have grown. It's actually from last semester. It's a little old, but it'll work just fine. These growths here are called colonies. Right? There's actually several different kinds of bacteria on there. So we're going to take some of the bacteria from one of those colonies. We're going to add it to this tube to grow them up. Right? We want to grow more of the bacteria to do our tests. So, same thing. Use fire. Once it is orange, you don't need to keep baking it, cooking it. And then you let it sit for, like I said, about 10, 12, 15 seconds. I then turn the plate upside down. Okay? This might be easier to see when you're here. But basically I do it so when I hold it like this, I'm not touching the bacteria. Right? I then flip it over. I get the bacteria I want. Right? And notice it's just a wee little bit there. Right? If you can see it, it's probably too much. Right? Just pull that open, inoculate it in, and close it. Done. Always flame after you transfer to kill the bacteria on there. And then once again, you want to note what this is. So I'm writing, this is from a plate, and my name is Jeff, and da-da-da-da, the date, whatever you need, because you're going to need to figure out what this was after it has grown. So that is the plate to the broth. Last one we want to do is inoculating a plate. Okay, pretty straightforward. Let's go from broth to plate. So this is a sterile plate. Notice there's no bacteria on the surface of that. Whenever I hold my plate, when I open it like this, so the media is pointed down, so that things falling from the sky don't end up in there, right? Like that. All I'm going to do is fire, wait for a second. Now, I can either go like this, or I can actually go like that. If I were you, I'd probably do this. It's a little easier. It's going to take a little getting used to. Okay. Now, on the surface of the plate, what you want to do is all you want to do is go doot, 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 and you're done. Okay. You do not dig into the plate. You just drag it along the surface. That's all. Once again, sterilize the loop. Kill anything. Now, once these are done, we would take these in some sort of container we'll have for these to put them in, some racks or some tubes to put them in, some cans, or your plate, and you want to put them in, this is the body here, and when this is on, this will say 37 degrees, this is at the right temperature to grow things in, this is the incubator, this is where you want to grow just about all your bacteria in here. So that is transfer of different organisms for the aseptic transfer. Turn my fire off. The only other thing I wanted to show you is you're going to need a composition book for the lab. Every lab, you're going to be taking data and looking and making observations. You've got to have a bound composition notebook, somewhat similar to this. Maybe you can get a Hello Kitty version, I don't know. But you're going to need to get that. That's it. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.